What did we talk about last week? Anybody remember?
Blood.
Well, that was the week before. We stuck everybody's finger and we looked and saw everybody's blood was clumped up and stacked up like a roll of nickels. And what we're talking about now is laws of health that will help us to have healthy blood.
Nutrition.
Last week we talked about nutrition and epigenetics and how some doctors have done, and we're going to review, some doctors have done quite a bit of research showing that you can turn switches for disease in your body off by the way you eat and the way that you live, or you can turn those switches for disease on. So we're going to review a little bit. This, again, I showed you this. This is the picture that I took of the flower that Jeff just talked about. So here are the laws of health that we're talking about in this particular series that we're going to go through this summer. And last week, again, we talked about nutrition. This week, we're talking about exercise and epigenetics. So we're going to review a little bit. So I believe, and I have found this, that all 8 of these particular laws right here can be found within the first 2 chapters of the Bible, Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2, which I find fascinating because that kind of gives us a little window into the mind of God when He created us as to what He intended our lives to be like. So in the beginning, I'm a creationist. I believe that God created Adam and Eve, the first pair, and from those first 2 humans, we have all of the races that we see in the world today. We have the Asians, we have the African Americans, we have the African race, we have the Oriental races. So all of those races came from simply 2 individuals. And if you do some research, I think it's called mitochondrial Eve. Has anybody heard of mitochondrial Eve? I think is what they call it, where they have traced genetics back and they've discovered that all humans come from one genetic female. That's kind of like, duh, for me, because I believe in creation. So on the ark, when the flood happened, there were, the Bible says that there were 2 pairs of horse kinds and 2 pairs of dog kinds. Of course, the clean animals were taken by 7s. And so from all of those, the 2 horse kinds, we get zebras and donkeys and mules and all that. And then from the dog kinds, we get all of the different types of canine species, everything from foxes and coyotes and wolves and all that comes from 2 kinds. So we can see that this is a result of some genes being turned off and some genes being turned on. I like to tease that these little bitty lap dogs that I see, I look at them sometimes and say, you got parts missing, because they've had some of those genes turned off. And so I like to tease them and tell them they got parts missing. So let's talk a little bit by way of review about epigenetics. We have genetics, which is our genes, and then we have epigenetics, which is these switches that we talked about can be turned off and on for disease. And by the way that we live, we can actually change our genetics so that what our parents handed us for disease susceptibility, we don't have to hand our children, because we can live such a lifestyle that it turns off those switches for disease production. That's what we want to talk about tonight. How can we do that? Last week, we talked about 2 doctors, particularly Dr. T. Colin Campbell and Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and both of these physicians had done research where they actually were able to turn off cancer genes, turn on cancer genes simply by altering the diet of their research subjects. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, actually, he was a surgeon, I think he's retired, but he was a surgeon, and he went to a cardiologist and he said, I need some patients. So he got a group of time bombs, really, people who were not given a lot of hope because of their heart condition. And he put them on a whole foods, plant-based, no oil diet, and he turned these people around. His success rate was upwards of 95%, if I remember correctly. It was incredible, and really turned off that gene for heart disease. And the same holds true with a whole bunch of other illnesses and ailments too. It's not just cancer and heart disease, and we'll go into that more tonight. In the first class, Gail, that you mentioned, we talked about how the life of the flesh is in the blood, and the quality of our blood determines the quality of our life. Okay, so we want to have good blood, and so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about exercise. I believe that we see the principle of exercise in Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. When God created Adam and Eve, where did He put them?
In the garden.
In a garden. How many of you are gardeners? Yeah. Okay, Jeff, I know all of you at some point have probably gardened. Is it easy?
No.
You're squatting, you're getting up, you're pushing the wheelbarrow, you're digging, you're hoeing, you're chopping. It's a lot of work to garden. Fantastic exercise, and it's a particular kind of exercise that we're going to talk about later on in the talk. So it says the Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and keep it. Those words dress and keep, if you go back to the original language, mean work. You were put there to work. God intended us to be active. Okay? And that is a law of health, I believe. And what happens if you break law? There's consequences, right? The curse causeless shall not come. And so if we break one of these laws of health, the curse causeless shall not come. There's going to be repercussions. So we were created to move, body, mind, everything. God created us to be beings of activity and purpose. So why are we talking about epigenetics? I mean, that's kind of a geeky term. Why are we talking about the biblical reasons for our diet and our lifestyle? The reason why is because when you leave here after this summer in the classes that we're doing, I want you to have solid ground under your feet for making lifestyle decisions. I want you to have science, and I want you to have Bible, because I believe that we need to base our lives on the Bible, because I believe God created us and He is intelligent. Another reason is because, time is time, and we all age chronologically at the same pace. A year is a year for you as it is for me. But we don't all age biologically at the same pace, and that's because we make different choices. Some of us may choose to eat differently. Some of us may choose to exercise, and other factors. So we can be someone in here could be 70 years old, but biologically they could only be 50, or they might be 90. So that's what we want to talk about tonight. What were you going to say?
I said I'm 90.
You're 90? Yeah. Well, we're going to learn how to reverse that, because thank God that can be reversed, that can be changed. And that's what we want to talk about tonight. The Bible says, I wish above all things in 3 John 2 that you'd be in health, prosper and be in health even as your soul prospers. And so it's God's will for us to be healthy. The problem is appetite. We like what we like. We want to eat what we want to eat. We want to do what we want to do. So what does exercise have to do with my genes, with my genetics, and even with epigenetics, which epi means above? And we're going to get a little bit geeky tonight, so bear with me, because we're going to talk about something called gene methylation. Does anybody in here take vitamin B12?
Pam and I both do.
Okay. Have you looked at the label? Does it say methylcobalamin? Have you noticed that, or you just see the B12? A lot of the B vitamins are methylated. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about here. Methylation is the key that unlocks the door to good genes and locks the door on the bad genes. If you see in the background, you can see there's a C and 3 H's. That's a methyl group. If you remember it's high school chemistry, CH3. That's a methyl group. These methyl groups are vital. It's a vital metabolic process that happens in every cell, in every organ, over 1 billion times a day. So it's kind of important to you and I both. Methylation is the process of taking this 1 carbon and 3 hydrogens and adding it, this is known as a methyl group, and applying it to innumerable critical functions of your body that are responsible for such things as thinking, detoxing, fighting infections and viruses and turning bad genes off and good genes on. So these methyl groups are actually kind of the switches on our genes. So these things are important. So it would be good to know, how can I increase that methyl stuff in my body? Okay, we're going to keep talking about this just a little bit more. The methyl groups can be influenced in various ways through exercise, diet, and lifestyle in a process known as DNA methylation. This is epigenetics. Okay, so the methyl groups, wherever they're placed in the body, is actually, again, that's the switch that turns off disease or on disease. And so this is kind of new research, and I want you to stick with me because I know this is a little bit geeky, but I'm laying some groundwork here, so stick with me. A little bit more on this. Most of the genes in question in regards to exercise are known to play a role in energy metabolism, insulin response. Anybody in here got insulin issues? Okay. And inflammation within the muscles. In other words, they affect how healthy and fit our muscles and bodies become. So let me give you an idea of how important this CH3 is in our body. Unless the neurotransmitter serotonin is methylated or has this CH3 added to it, it's inactive. And that leads to depression. So if you struggle with depression, you may not have enough of these methyl groups. Homocysteine. If you look at your basic lab work, you may see homocysteine on your lab work. That's a marker of inflammation in the body. It's a waste byproduct of protein and amino acid metabolism. And if it is not methylated, it can be very harmful. But if it is methylated, if it does have this group added to it, it becomes glutathione, which is, we've talked about glutathione in this class before. That is the most powerful antioxidant in our bodies. So you can take this harmful substance, add this methyl group to it, and it becomes something good. And that's fantastic. So we want to learn how we can increase these methyl groups.
Can you have too much B12 in your body?
Can you have too much B12? When I was at my sickest with Rocky Mountain spotted fever and mold toxicity, my B12 level was over 2,000. My naturopath told me that that can be a marker for cancer, but in my situation, he said, don't worry about it. I don't fully understand why. I know that you can over-supplement, so you have to be careful with that. It's good to monitor.
When I had my blood work done, they said I had too much B12 in my system, so I cut back to every other day.
Yeah, you may just have been taking more than you needed.
Well, like I said, the doctor told me to take it daily, so that's what I was doing, but that was one doctor, and now the other doctor says no. My general practitioner says I got too much of it in my system.
Yeah. Any of the supplements, we really have to be careful because we can get ourselves in trouble by supplementation if we don't know what we're doing. Okay, Dr. Kara Fitzgerald made a very interesting statement. She said a single hit of high glucose intake, which is sugar, can damage the body's ability to methylate for an extended period of time. So you cannot be able to turn these switches on your genes off and on. We're going to get to why this is important in just a little bit. High intensity interval training, which we'll talk about more later in this talk, increases this methylation, and so does sleep and low stress. Okay, we're going to switch from methylation now. Now we're going to talk about something called telomeres. Has anybody ever heard of telomeres before? Kaylin, you have. I'm going to take my shoes off and I'm going to show you what a telomere is kind of like. A telomere is like this little cap on the end of my shoestring. Okay? We have chromosomes, and our chromosomes are wound up DNA. And every time our cells divide, we have these little caps on the end of our chromosomes that are called telomeres that help our chromosomes not fuse together, which can cause a lot of things like cancer. And it causes them not to unravel, so it protects. And it's a kind of a repetition of genetic information so that when the cells divide, a little bit of that cap is lost. And once the cells divide so many times that that cap is gone, the cells can't divide anymore, and that's curtains. Okay? So it's kind of important that we keep our telomeres long. Let's talk about this a little bit more. Let me put my shoe back on so I'm not standing up here lopsided. Okay, again, I'm going to tell you what I just told you. At the end of the chromosomes are caps of DNA called telomeres. These telomeres protect our genetic code as cells divide and create new skin, new bone, new blood, etc. In other words, telomeres allow our body to create new cells without losing genes, and they also control how fast our cells age. So this has to do with aging. If your telomeres on the end of your chromosomes are super short, you don't have much time left. But thankfully, there's an enzyme called telomerase that lengthens those things. Guess what increases telomerase?
Exercise.
What's that?
Exercise.
Exercise. Exercise lengthens that genetic material on your chromosomes and extends your life. That's how it extends your life. Okay? Each time a cell divides, let me back up here. Telomeres have been compared to the plastic tip on shoelaces because they keep the chromosome ends from fusing together and corrupting the cell's genetic blueprint, which can cause early aging, cancer, or cellular death. Each time a cell divides, these telomeres get shorter, and when they're too short, the cell can no longer divide and it dies. Healthy function of the telomeres require adequate, guess what? Methylation. These methyl groups are nourishing, as it were, to these telomeres, the end caps on our genes, which lengthen our life. Okay? Let's move on here. Telomere shortness in human beings is a prognostic marker for aging, disease, and premature morbidity. So scientists could actually take a sample from any one of us in here and look at our genes and see the length of our telomeres and basically predict how much life we have left in our body. They could tell you, you have X amount of time. That's interesting to me. Once the telomere is gone, the gene stops replicating. I mentioned that just a minute ago. Repeated prolonged stress inhibits telomere repair, but consistent, regular exercise along with a healthy diet and lifestyle helps to keep the telomeres vital and working so that our cells don't age so quickly, and this keeps us younger. And studies have shown that those who incorporate exercise alone but don't adapt a good diet, they don't show the same telomere protection. But those who eat a healthy plant-based diet and exercise, they have a 30% improvement over those who incorporated only exercise. All the laws of health that we're going to discuss in this series are targeted to lengthen your telomeres and increase telomerase, which is this enzyme that helps to produce telomeres. It can be as simple as let's just exercise, but I want to give you science.
Yes.
I want to give you a reason why. Just like we brought the microscope and we showed you what your blood looks like, I want to go inside your body and help you understand physiology so that you understand what happens when we do or don't exercise. When we choose not to exercise, we're shortening the end caps on our genes and thereby our lives. So exercise is very important, and all the laws of health are. Researchers have been able to calculate just how much one serving of ham or pork can shorten telomeres. Consumption of this actually shortens the telomeres in our body. I don't know if you knew that. I thought that was very fascinating. Exercise and diabetes. Exercise can delay the onset of diabetes by boosting the expression of genes involved in muscle oxidation and glucose regulation. DNA methylation drives these changes, and they can occur within just a few hours of exercise. So just exercising within a few hours, you're better able to control your glucose. So exercising is very important for that. Let's talk a little bit more about that. They're better able to use available insulin and take up glucose during and after exercise. And muscles use glucose better than fat. So ramping up muscle motors can lower overall glucose levels. Studies have shown that regular exercise can prevent or delay the onset of type 2 diabetes. While diabetes does run in families, risk factors include a sedentary lifestyle, obesity, and aging, all factors that can be influenced by exercise. If you exercise a lot and you make these epigenetic changes, you wouldn't just change your short term. I mentioned this earlier, that you can, by adopting these laws of health, you can actually change your genes so that you don't have to pass on disease to your offspring. I don't think any one of us in here is going to be having kids, but this is vital information we could share with our kids and our grandkids. What about depression? Most of us know that exercise, do you know that exercise releases endorphins? Okay, my husband knows that. This is a chemical in our bodies that our bodies makes, that it's an opioid-like thing. It's similar to morphine, so that it reduces pain perception. Endorphins not only reduce the perception of physical pain, but emotional pain as well. Have you ever had some stress or whatever in your body and you just feel like you need to go for a walk? That walk is actually helping to reduce your perception of, yes?
When I was a runner and I was running, I would get what some runners get, they call the runner's high. And I would get that, and it was the releasing of these endorphins. It was just like my whole body, my mind, and everything. It's just overwhelming, and it really,
yeah,
it's real.
Yeah, I think I have something about runner's high a little bit later in the talk. Endorphins also act as a sedative. So when we release these endorphins, whether it's through exercise, whether it's through laughter, which we'll talk about in just a minute, or whatever, it actually induces sound sleep. So it helps our sleep. So let's all practice releasing some endorphins. She just did, you just did. When you smile, that act of smiling actually releases some measure of endorphins. I like this. 1 minute of anger weakens your immune system for 4 or 5 hours. What if you're exposed to somebody who has a virus or the flu bug or what have you during that time frame? Not a good situation. But 1 minute of laughter boosts your immune system for how long? What's that say?
24 hours.
24 hours. So one good belly laugh can boost your immune system for up to 24 hours. That's exercise, by the way. When you laugh, you're really exercising your abdominal muscles. Have you ever laughed so hard your stomach hurt and you couldn't stop laughing and your stomach, oh, you're just dying because your stomach hurts? Yeah. If laughter is the best medicine, then how come people can die laughing? So, okay. Exercise and anxiety. This is where we talk about runner's high. Exercise, again, releases these beta endorphins, and that's what we call, what my husband talked about, the runner's high. By exercising while exposing the skin to sunlight, the production of beta endorphins drastically increases. So when you exercise outside, you are really getting greater benefit than by exercising indoors. We're going to talk about some different types of exercise that can be done indoors, because I know the weather is quite inclement here in North Dakota for a lot of months. So we'll talk about some things that will help with that. So, okay. Our brain requires a large supply of these methyl donors, which is in the background, CH3, to maintain a good mood. If we have chronic stress and depression, this typically indicates a lack of methyl donors, meaning our telomeres are not nourished, because you remember methyl groups are vital for healthy telomeres or end caps, which is vital for long life. So if we're having this chronic stress and our telomeres are shorted, we got to do something about that stress, okay, and that depression. That's a major reason why stress and depression ages people. Have you ever seen pictures? Think about this. Think about when a president goes into office. He may have brown hair, black hair, whatever. But when he comes out 4 years later, what does his hair look like? It's white. And I looked it up and I started to put it in here, but I thought, okay, this is going to be too much. Okay. But it was very interesting. I went back, I think I went all the way back to Theodore Roosevelt, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, it may have been further back than that. But without exception, every single one, when they went in, they had darker hair than when they came out. And I don't know if you remember, the one to me that was most marked, two of them, were Clinton and Obama. When they went in, they had dark hair. When they came out, it was white. So that's a lot of stress in that office, and I don't want anything to do with that. Okay. Blood clotting. Okay, exercise decreases the risk of having blood clots. Clots can lead to stroke and heart attack. Now, when we begin to implement an exercise program, which we all should, we don't want to go from 0 to 55 overnight. Okay? It takes time. We have to build up. If we're not accustomed to exercising and we're just in terrible shape or whatever, start with 5 minutes a day. And I'm going to show you some exercises tonight that are very easy to implement. Some that are a little bit more, like with this device here. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So just a little bit at a time. Let's talk about heart disease. Regular exercise is a proven way to decrease the risk of heart disease. I think everybody kind of knows that, right? And stroke. It also helps to adjust the good, bad cholesterol, so to speak. And it helps to prevent plaque buildup. But I want to show you this. I want to go to the next slide. This is a heart that was taken from an obese person. Now the white stuff here that you see around the heart, this is fat, but it's a special kind of fat. This is called visceral fat. Some people call this angry fat because it's metabolically active. It produces its own hormones. It produces powerful inflammatory compounds. So this is not a good thing. Visceral fat is something you do not want to have around your internal organs. Anyone who is obese does have this. And I want to show you this, and please, I'm not picking on anybody here, but I want to show you here. Obesity is defined by being 20% over the ideal body weight. And here's a chart. I know it's difficult for you to see, but let's just do, for instance here. I am about 5'1". What's that?
Do me.
Okay, I'm going to do me. I'm about 5'1", and I weigh about 95 pounds. So my body fat, my body mass index my BMI is 18. So that means I am underweight. And I'm working on gaining weight. A lot of that is because of the autoimmune disease, the Rocky Mountain spotted fever, the mold, all these things really took the weight off of me. And I have gained weight. I got down to like 91 pounds, I think, but I'm gaining it back. And it's been a hard journey because of constant exposures to some things. So if you want a copy, if you want these slides, I'll be happy to email them to you. But you can find this body mass index chart online, and it goes over, and across the top it shows the height, and down the side it shows the weight. And then when you follow those together, you can actually find what your BMI, your body mass index is, and whether you're overweight, slightly overweight, obese, normal, or underweight.
So is it with your age too, or not with age?
This particular thing does not include age. It's mainly based on your height and your weight, and that's how we determine your body mass index. Now there are charts that take into account the age, because women that are postmenopausal, there's a lot of stuff that's like a 747 that's, being flown. If there's a lot going on with women's hormones. And so it was interesting. I was talking to my chiropractor yesterday, and she does hormone testing. And I was teasing her. I said, she had told me that it's easy to fix men's hormones, but ladies, it's hard. And I said, it's like a toggle switch and an instrument panel for a 747, the difference between men and women, and it is. Okay, exercise and obesity. Methylation that takes place as a result of exercise usually turns off that area of the gene that results in the tendency of cells to store fat. So as we exercise, we can actually turn off that gene for fat storage. Okay? There's a lot more to this, and I have a video on our YouTube channel called Obesogens, because there's actually toxins. Toxins are what's called lipophilic or fat-loving. They like to be stored in fat. And the body is very intelligent. It's not going to let go of excess weight if you're toxic, because it has to have a place to put those toxins. So if you're trying to lose weight and you can't, then if you will detox, a lot of time that weight will come off. Let's talk about osteoporosis. Both weight-bearing and resistance exercises. So weight-bearing is like doing push-ups. Resistance is something like these bands where you actually pull against them and there's resistance there. Okay? If you take a matchbox size of human bone, it's stronger than concrete. It can withstand 18,000 pounds of healthy human bone. But if we have osteoporosis, we lose that strength because the bone becomes porous. But studies have shown that weight-bearing exercise helps to strengthen the bone. And there's other things too that help to strengthen it. What about osteoarthritis? Cartilage has no direct blood supply. The way waste products are removed and nutrients are taken to the cartilage is by exercise. As we walk, the synovial fluid is squeezed out, and then as the pressure is released, it goes into that space. Lack of exercise is what causes cartilage to deteriorate, okay, and too much weight. American College of Rheumatology says that exercise is vital for the successful management of osteoarthritis. Strengthening the hip and quadricep muscles dramatically reduces issues with osteoarthritis. So what I'm going to show you some exercises tonight that will specifically help to strengthen the quadriceps and the hip muscles. Okay, these are just some more facts here. Exercise improves the quality of life by elevating mood, lowering pain perception. We talked about that with the endorphins. It increases blood flow and function of the immune system. It decreases body weight and increases the body's ability to fight cancer. You got to be lean to fight. Insulin resistance promotes cancer. Exercise reduces insulin resistance. And healthy telomeres provides protection against cancer. What about hypertension? High blood pressure. Exercise causes dilation of the blood vessels and strengthens the heart muscle. And by reducing stress levels, blood pressure is also lowered, and we know that exercise reduces stress levels because it releases these endorphins. What about the stomach? Physical activity decreases morbidity and mortality in diseases such as irritable bowel disease, Crohn's disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, etc. Moderate exercise improves gastric motility and stomach emptying, so things are just moving better. When you walk, your intestines basically kind of swing in there, and that swinging motion kind of massages and helps things to move along. Okay, what about memory? Anybody have trouble with memory these days?
What was your name again?
Kaylin is actually going to do a talk, if we have time later on this summer. There's 4 things that are huge drivers in this massive memory loss that we see among people today. One is Wi-Fi. The other is aluminum, fluoride in the water, and glyphosate. These things are actually, these glyphosate, aluminum, fluoride in the water, are actually activated by Wi-Fi. When I sit close to Wi-Fi for a while, I start having chest pain, anxiety, palpitations, muscle pain, headaches, dizziness, all these things. When I go outside and I walk barefooted on the earth, all that goes away. So that is a huge factor, and we can talk about that later on in the summer. Regular aerobic exercise, that which increases your heart rate, and causes you to sweat, can boost the size of the hippocampus. The hippocampus is part of the brain that has to do with memory. So if you're losing your memory, get out and go for a walk, okay? Resistance training and balance training doesn't have that much effect on the memory. It's that aerobic exercise, so we need both the aerobic, the resistance, the weight training, all of these things, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. How does that happen? It happens by reducing insulin resistance, reducing inflammation, stimulating the release of growth factors. There's a growth factor called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which helps new cells regenerate or grow in the brain. So when we exercise, we're producing this brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which causes brain cells. I used to believe once a brain cell dies, that's it, you've lost it. But that's not true. There's something called neuroplasticity, which means we can grow new brain cells. And I'm so thankful for that, because I've killed a few in my lifetime. Okay, exercise increases the actual volume of areas of the brain that control thinking and memory. So here's the BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Consistent exercise makes it easier to learn new behaviors and habits. I like to memorize different Bible verses, and when I go for a walk and I try to sing these Bible verses, I remember them a whole lot better. So, in the world today, one new case of dementia is detected every 4 seconds. Mm-hmm. And there's a statistic, it was by Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt. I think he said by the year 2025, 100% of us are going to have some form of dementia. And I'm finding that today. Even young people can't remember where they put their keys. They can't remember names. They can't remember phone numbers because we don't have to anymore. This remembers everybody's phone number. This is probably 25 years ago, I had my own cleaning business. I knew the phone numbers of every one of my clients, and I knew their cell phone numbers too. I knew their addresses. I probably even remembered their birth dates. But you think I can remember any of those numbers now? I have them in here. I didn't have a cell phone then. So these things are a two-edged sword, okay? Let's talk about sleep. 150 minutes of exercise over a 1-week period, that's roughly 30 minutes a day, improves the quality of sleep by 60%. Anybody in here have insomnia? Everybody sleeping good in here? Fantastic. That's good. Eye-hand coordination. Studies have shown that children with on the autism spectrum disorders don't have good eye-hand coordination, and exercise helps to increase that. Okay, that's enough on that one. All right, I want to talk a little bit about this device here. This is a rebounder, and I'm going to show you a little bit. This is a video. Some of you may know who this lady is, but she's going to demonstrate, and I'll let you hear her.
If you're not used to it, you can just go like that. That's called the health bounce. But as you get better at it, I'm not going to jump really, really high, but you get better at it. You get kids, have you seen what kids will do on this? You know, at first, kids are a little bit out of balance, and you might be a little bit out of balance, but the more you do it, the better your balance will be. You can also start by this, just going like that. But this little one's called the health bounce. But when you start jumping, when you're to the height of your jump, every gate opens. And when you hit the mat again, every gate closes. Isn't that incredible? You only have to rebound for 1 minute in the morning to get that lymphatic system activated for the whole day. And once that lymphatic system is activated, every movement you make, just scratching your head, turning around, it's keeping the movement going.
There are some really advanced workouts that you can do on these things, but just 2 minutes of bouncing. Remember, I think it was last week we talked about the importance of lymph flow and having the lymph moving in our lymph is another fluid in our body that needs to circulate, but it doesn't have a pump. Our muscles are the pump. So when we exercise, we're moving that lymph, and that's the mistake that I made when I was trying to fight the Rocky Mountain spotted fever, is I wasn't moving my lymph and I wasn't detoxing properly. So moving the lymph is very important. 2 minutes on this thing, doing what she just demonstrated, really unlocks the lymph. It's good to do it in the morning. So genetics may be the gun, but our lifestyle choices is what pulls the trigger. Okay, so we want to remember that. So how do we exercise? We're going to talk a little bit about high intensity interval training. If you're walking, just going for a walk, have a period where you just pour on the steam. You walk as hard as you can. If you can only go like this, go like this. Do what you can. The point is that you're increasing to your maximum capacity for like 30 seconds. 30 seconds doesn't seem like a very long time. But when I go up and down our driveway out at the Felkley farm and I run for 30 seconds, I'm waiting for that 29, 30. I'm ready to quit. And then you walk, or you kind of cool down, go slow. You don't stop, but you go slower for about 90 seconds, 2 minutes, as long as it takes until you feel like you can pour on the steam again. And you can do that right here on this rebounder. You can actually run on the rebounder, and I do it. This thing is set up in our garage, and I get on there and I run really hard, and then I just do the health bounce for a little bit. And Kalen didn't believe me that this thing was really good exercise until he got on it the other day. It's exercise, isn't it?
It is. It surprised me.
It makes a big difference.
It moves things.
So if you're going to exercise 30 minutes, then you would aim for about 6 to 8 of those cycles of all out and then relax. All out and then relax. Try to get 6 to 8 of those cycles in there. Okay, now I'm going to get a little geeky on you again. I just learned this today, so I was pretty excited, so I thought I'm going to throw this in there. Sirtuins. What are sirtuins? Our bodies, these are enzymes. Our bodies have, that we know of, 7 sirtuins, and these are enzymes important for cellular function. Sirtuin number 6 is nicknamed the longevity enzyme. And this is the enzyme that is important for the lengthening of those telomeres. This is the enzyme that switches on that methylation and strengthens those things. High intensity interval training switches on, increases this sirtuin 6, the longevity enzyme. So here's another physiological reason to exercise. Turn this thing on. Okay? All right. Let's talk a little bit more about interval training. Interval training, I think it was, I forget which country it was, but their athletes only did interval training. They were like distance athletes or something like that. But they only did this interval training. They didn't train with distances. They trained with this interval training. They blew the doors off of the competition. They were so fit from doing this interval training, nobody could beat them. Okay, so when we do this, it reduces the risk of injury, because like my husband used to be a runner. Did you ever hurt yourself? Did you ever twist your ankle? That's pounding, and it's really constant. It never gives the heart muscle a chance to relax. Have any of you ever heard of these elite runners that fall over with a heart attack? It's because their heart is not getting any rest in this time frame. That's why the interval training is so powerful, because it reduces the risk of energy. It strengthens the endurance. It reduces the risk of exercise boredom. And interval training is associated with better weight loss. So here's some suggestions. Exercise the same time of the day every day, and do something you enjoy, whether it's swimming, gardening, rollerblading, walking the dogs, whatever. I like this thing, and I like walking, and I like using these. I just like movement. You know, these are easy to resistance bands. You know, you can really strengthen your back and the backs of your arms. There's a lot of different things you can do with these. Okay, I'll have Kaylin demonstrate some of it, because I'm not going to pull my skirt up and wrap them around my legs in front of y'all. I'll have Kaylin do that. So we want to increase the time and intensity slowly. If you're not accustomed to exercising, if you have, like you have your foot problem there, you can start slowly. Some people, I've seen these little, it's like bicycle pedals, but it's on a frame. And you can sit in your chair and just bicycle. That's fantastic. Do that. There was actually a study done where they just had people cycle with one leg and not the other. Of course, the other leg, they did that for 3 months. The leg that was exercised, you know, was much stronger, but it also had genetic changes in that leg. So it's very interesting how we can actually change our genes with this. Again, do most of your exercise outside as much as possible. I know that's not really possible here in the wintertime. So that was exercise that we talked about. Now I'm going to show you some of these exercises. The Lord tells us if we would diligently hearken to Him, He would not put the diseases that He brought on the Egyptians. Research has shown that the diseases that the Egyptians had were lifestyle diseases. The same kinds of things that we struggle with today because of our diet and lifestyle. So I am going to ask my husband to set the camera here, and we're going to demonstrate a couple of things for you. So I had the video there of the health bounce, and that's easy. When you take your shoes off when you bounce on this, the receptors on the bottom of your feet actually help to improve balance. As we age, balance is the first thing to go. Anybody notice that? Your balance is not as good. So they have these rebounders that have, like she said, the bar. So you can get a bar and hold on until your balance begins to improve.
You can even use a chair.
Yes. Yeah. Whenever I first I had a tall ladder back chair, and I just held on to the two fingers until my balance has improved from doing this. And I'm glad, you know. I don't want to age rapidly. I'm 58, but I would like to be biologically 30. You know, wouldn't that be wishful thinking? But it could be. So, Kaylin, if you will come up, I'm gonna wrap you up and show the folks how to use these bands a little bit, and then you can show them a little bit more on the rebounder, some things that you can do. Take your shoes off there. Another thing that you can do with the rebounder, if you don't feel secure standing on it, is you can sit on it. Just sit on it and do the health bounce. It's kind of fun. You know, I have this set up in my mother's house. I have one down in Alabama. First place the kids go when they come in. It's a rebounder. And I don't mind, you know. Okay, you want to show them, I'm not sure what you did on the rebounder, but can you?
All I did was a health bounce. That was it. And I could feel that when I was doing it, I could feel that things were moving. And when I got done, I got off, and it just like the blood started rushing. And I think the biggest thing for me was the lymph. Because I work, but I don't do exercise, and there is a difference. And I can tell when I exercise, I can tell the difference between exercising and working. And just bouncing on this reminded me quite a bit of when I used to run, because when you're running, you know, it depends how your stride is. You're getting a lot of movement.
Act like you're running on this, honey, because I want them to see how strong this thing is.
But this is all I was doing, just simply this. And you can feel it moving your body inside.
And you can actually act like you're doing jumping jacks on it, you know, and you can do jumping jacks on it.
And I've not used this a lot, so I don't have very good balance. So I'm just telling you, I'm not gonna.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, you want to step down. We could push that back. There's a lot that we can do on this device, and you're welcome to try this if you want to.
Can I ask you a question now?
Okay.
I have a cousin that has told me recently that he's had trouble when you said lymph, or I think of lymph nodes, of course, obviously, like in his head from draining and stuff like this. And he said like, he goes to like the hot tubs and saunas and stuff, but this here would probably help too, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah. This is a really good one. Somebody actually gave me this. I had done some health counseling with her, and she is friends with the guy that invented this thing, and she gifted me with this. I was dumbfounded. It was such a nice gift, and I love it. I use it almost every day. And another thing that I like to use is these resistance bands. If you've ever been to PT, to physical therapy, you've probably gotten these. But when we age, our legs tend to get a little bit weaker. So I'm going to have my husband demonstrate a couple of, oh, I'm sorry. You got your feet up on that. Okay. Just sit down here, honey. So, Mom, I think you went to some therapy in McCluskey. Just the act of sitting and standing up. So stand up and sit down. Just that is exercise. Now, another thing that you can do, wrap these around your ankles and pull them up.
I noticed he's more straight too. So his back is more straight. I'm slouchy.
Okay. A lot of problems with balance are the muscles here on the sides of the hips. Okay, one of the things that you can do to help strengthen that, now push your knees apart. Just your knees. Keep your feet together. Just push your knees and bring them together. So you can see that, do you feel it here?
I feel it all along in here.
All along here. You remember that one slide that talked about strengthening the quadriceps and the hip muscles, all of these pelvic girdle muscles? That's very important for balance, for helping with, this is the most important muscle group, I believe, to work, is the legs and the hips, the pelvic area. Okay, another thing that you can do, if you sit on a table that's a little higher, no, keep it there. You sit. We didn't rehearse this. So, if your feet are like dangling, then you can kind of keep your knees together, but push your ankles apart with this band.
Ooh.
That's a little harder.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I want you to stand up. Put this band on. The black one is extra heavy. The red one is kind of heavy. The other ones are too wimpy for you, honey. You're too strong. So put that on just above your knees.
Just above my knees?
Just above your knees. These bands I got off of Amazon, they're not that, I think I paid like $15 for the set or something like that. And they're really nice. Okay, stand up. Now I want you to step sideways. You feel that? Just keep going. Step side, 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 side. There you go.
Oh yeah.
You feel it?
Yeah, when you do more
Okay, come back this way.
Oh yeah. That really isn't.
Yes. This right here is the reason a lot of people's backs go out. Is because they're weak right here. Okay? And so if you do this kind of exercise, you're really going to strengthen that area. So with that side to side motions, I really think these bands are a good idea. The bands, and if you can afford one of the rebounders, fantastic. Fantastic, especially for North Dakota in the wintertime. The indoor stuff. As much as you can move it outdoors, move it outdoors. Okay?
There's lots of things to do outdoors all winter.
What's that?
You can stay busy all winter outside.
You can shovel snow.
Yeah, you can shovel snow. Fantastic. There you go. Most people have snow blowers.
I was just going to mention one thing too. Don't be afraid of exercise. Even, when I work a lot of hours and I was still running, I was tired. And you mentioned something that brought this back to me because you were slouching and I would sit up. I would come home and I was exhausted. I was tired. But I wanted to run. I had this drive to run. And when I would get done running, of course, those endorphins were released, and it just corrected my posture because I felt more energetic. It was just, my whole body was flowing. I was getting the fresh air and everything with the exercise, and it just changed my whole mental thought process too. Even though I was tired, it would have been easy to stay at home and sit, but...
You were breathing fresh air. You were outside in the sunshine. You were getting exercise. You were sweating, so you were detoxing. So win-win, you know.
And I'm not saying you have to run, because running is very hard on your body. But walking, like you said, the interval.
Even just walking as fast as you can. You know, you can really power walk, and you can burn some calories. And they have these, Mom has some ankle weights. You can do those ankle weights. You can leave that on for a minute. Another thing that you can do besides the side stepping is just to bring your leg out. You notice my balance is pretty good doing this. When I first started doing this, I about fell over. You know, but now I can do 20 or 30 of these, and my balance is so much better, and it's because of using the rebounder and doing these hip exercises. Okay, another thing that I do is I'll take weights in my hand and I just do squats, you know, or deep knee bends. You know, I'll do, I don't know, 3 or 4 sets of maybe 10 or 15, and then toe raises. These are all just things, but you can include this with the aerobic, you know, these resistance bands, and then you can get on the rebounder and you can actually run, okay? Or just go back and forth, you know, from leg to leg, like she was demonstrating in the video.
And if you don't have weights, you can use cans of vegetables or
Yeah, cans of vegetables, there you go. Or you can use the bands even, you know. You can put this on your foot and, you know, whatever, pull them apart. There's a lot of different things you can do with these things. Really feel that on the back of my arms. So anyway, that's just what I wanted to share with you tonight. I hope this is beneficial. I hope it encouraged somebody to exercise more, because movement is a law of life. And if we're not active, those telomeres are going to shorten, your genes are you're going to turn on the switches for disease, and you're not going to feel well. Your life is not going to be as lengthy as it might otherwise be. Okay, if there's no questions, and yes?
I don't have a question, but I was going to say something. You know, sometimes, I don't know, I'm not going to say doctors, but I've read in several books before where they say not to do it like right before you go to bed, sir. And I'm just going to say my own opinion. Don't believe that, because my mom was telling me that back in the high school, and then several times. Some of you guys locally know, you know, I've lost some weight before in my life. It's hard to keep it off. Harder to keep it off than even losing it. But there's one thing I'll say. It doesn't matter when you do this exercise, I don't think. Some might. Because I did it because of my farming at the evening, or I did it a lot of times even at 9:30, 10 at this time of year when it first get dark. I'd get home off the tractor and I'd go out and walk, and then do push-ups and sit-ups and whatever that. I can honestly tell you, I could come home and then I'd probably take a bath or a shower and go to bed. I slept real good.
Yeah.
Didn't bother my sleeping one bit.
Yeah, you remember the statistic that we saw that exercise increases sleep quality by 60%. So that's fantastic.
Well, I have to say that when I was in Lincoln, Nebraska for 6.5 months, I didn't get any exercise. I did help with the housework, I did help some with the cooking, and pick up twigs in their yard, because that's a huge yard. And otherwise we just sat, and my sister likes to sit out in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And when Kaylin and Dana came back home, they got me going. And I don't have the pain that I had, and I feel better.
That's
And my
praise the
balance
Lord.
is better than what it was.
I'm glad to hear that, Mom.
Yeah. So if it wouldn't have been for Kaylin and Dana, I probably would be sitting around. But anyway, yeah.
We're going to keep the fires lit up under you, Mom.
Yeah.
Yes,
I had
sir.
a question going back to the, preserving the genetics and living a healthy life, and to change things a little bit. I remember back when we all were younger, back in, say, because we had our first child, we're both 27, like 40 something years ago. But I mean, people back then were having children younger. When I was 27, that was considered old to start having kids. But it's Seckle and Laura at 32. But nowadays, people, it's more like they're in their 40s, which I'm not criticizing that. There's reasons why we do these things. But people having them older now, aren't their bodies picking up more genetic changes and passing this on that aren't good?
Yes. Yes, and I think the reason many people are having children older is because they want to establish themselves first.
Exactly.
They want to establish their career or what have you. And when, for instance, when women wait till their late 30s, 40s to get pregnant, they have a tendency, more of a tendency towards twins. They have more of a tendency toward Down syndrome. And it's because this genetic aging, and so it is a much greater risk that you're going to have a child that has issues if
Even
you're
for the male, if he has a younger wife,
yeah.
it's still passed on.
And Jeff, if you factor in the fact that most guys carry their phone where
Yeah, right.
in their front pocket or here, they're irradiating their testicles.
Okay.
And damaging their sperm. I know of a lady who carried her cell phone in her bra, and she had breast cancer, and it was exactly the shape of her cell phone. So these are really, this is called a safe sleeve. It's supposed to block like 95% of the radiation. You can actually open it, answer the phone, there's a little hole here, and you can talk on it like this, so that it protects your head. When you hold this to your head, and I'm getting kind of off topic, but when you hold this to your head, you're basically cooking your brain. If you've ever noticed your ear is red when you get off the cell phone, you're cooking your ear. There is an explosion in brain tumors now, and this is why. People are dying because they're holding these things to their heads.
I guess it's good that I usually turn mine on speaker and I set it down and I don't hold it.
And that's much better, to put it on speaker. It's much better. Yeah. Okay, is there any other comment or question or anything? Okay. All right.
Ask me what them 4 things you mentioned that he's gonna do. I remember Wi-Fi and
Okay. Glyphosate.
something like the water.
Glyphosate is
Yeah, I can
Roundup.
remember those.
Yeah. Let's go over them. Glyphosate. Everybody here should know
What is that?
Roundup. The herbicide Roundup that's sprayed out here everywhere. And that stuff outgasses. So even here in town, if it's not sprayed here in town, it's outgassing. We're getting the fumes from that stuff. Drift, yeah. Yeah. And then there's fluoride in the water. Thank God for the well in Goodrich. But the county water, the rural water, fluoride in it. And then they're spraying us with aluminum. And if you're cooking with, if you wrap your potatoes in aluminum foil and then you eat that potato, you're eating aluminum. If you cover your hot food with aluminum foil, you're eating aluminum. It goes right into your food. Okay? So we have glyphosate, we have fluoride, we have aluminum, and then these, especially the aluminum, this is conductive. And then you turn on the Wi-Fi and you're frying yourself. So Kaylin, hopefully we'll have time for you to do a talk on that later in the summer. So stay tuned. Yes, ma'am.
There's a way to eliminate covering your food with aluminum. If you take and put a layer or a piece of parchment paper.
Parchment
first,
paper, yes.
And then your aluminum, it doesn't bleed through your food.
Right, and that's better than the saran wrap too.
Better than saran wrap.
Yes,
Right.
so parchment paper next to the food and then the aluminum foil.
Yeah.
So I have done that. Even with potatoes, you can wrap your potatoes that way too. I have done that.
I don't even wrap them. They're nice and crisp when you don't wrap them.
Yeah, I like mine just baked without anything on them, you know.
Stick them in the oven, poke them and stick them in the oven.
Yeah, yeah.
You sure you poke them or they'll explode.
I had that happen one time. Yes.
I learned that.
Yeah.
I've done it too.
Okay. If that's no other questions or comments, then we'll close. I'll let you close with a prayer.
Oh, okay. Our Father in heaven, we thank you that you've given us these bodies and that we're able to move, and that we've learned now that you've designed us to move and that we can exercise. And it's amazing how we were created, that we can even reverse these things and the choice is ours. And so, Father, I pray that you would bless each one here, that you would give them the desire to exercise and to help them to be able to implement a plan that works for them. And so, Lord, may we continue to move, and may your blessings be upon each one here. We thank you, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.